Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, Back to School Remote Learning Action Plan, Take Two. I just want to apologize on behalf of COABE to our participants and our sponsor and presenters for what happened on Wednesday. We had a little technical glitch and got cut off about 20 minutes into the presentation. But we're going to start back up and try it from the top again today. So thank you for everyone for your patience and for coming back today. Today's presentation is presented by Vinod Lobo, founder and CEO of Learning Upgrade, and Drew Robinson, Director of Sales, Marketing, and Customer Service of Learning Upgrade. Please welcome Vinod and Drew by saying hello in the chat section, and you can also submit your questions in the Q&A section. So with that, I'll hand it over to Vinod and Drew. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, James, and thank you everyone for returning today for Take Two. We're going to be starting from the top just so we have a full recording that we'll be able to share with everybody that is not able to attend. But again, just want to appreciate you making the time to come back here on Friday. You know, and it's a great lesson. You know, a lot of us have had to learn patience and be very flexible with COVID starting in March and adapting to a new teaching paradigm. And, you know, having technology drop the presentation midway on Wednesday, you know, it's something that can happen in your classroom. You know, when you're having a virtual classroom, a virtual environment, to instantly lose internet access is something that's a real possibility. It's something that students are dealing with, and it's something that we will be addressing in the presentation today. So it is fitting in a way. But before we get started, I just want to recap on, you know, what is remote learning? It's something that everybody had heard, and it was a topic that was starting to gain momentum pre-COVID. It was something that we were focusing presentations on starting really 2 years ago, and how you can adapt a blended model and do adult learning. So pre-COVID, our goal was to have Learning Upgrade be a part of what our instructors were doing in the classroom for in-class instruction, but mostly it was something that we were using to give extra time, extra practice for your learners at home, where they could utilize our tool on a smartphone, on a tablet, or on their personal computer. But very quickly in late March, remote learning became, you know, the whole enchilada for most of us. It was school went from being in session in, you know, about March 18, 19. And then that weekend we found out, okay, we're going back Monday, and nope, we're not going back Monday. You know, in a 24 to 48 hour period, everybody was, you know, forced to really quickly adapt to a reality where we couldn't meet with our students in the classroom. And that was with really, you know, no time to prepare, no time to plan, no time to vet tools, no time to adapt a system-wide ideology on how we were going to approach this. And since then, you know, we launched our initial remote learning action plan. And with the help of a lot of instructors, a lot of adult education providers, I see a few of you on the presentation today, we've been, you know, really able to fine tune and hone our approach for a very quick and easy to deploy remote learning action plan that we've seen in use with hundreds of adult ed providers already, and we're excited to bring it to you here today. So in this definition, so remote learning is where the student and educator or an information source are not physically present in a traditional classroom. So that's something that may have been foreign to a lot of you pre-COVID, but it's just the reality for almost everyone now. And in this setup, the information is relayed through technology. And so most of us use a discussion board. So that could be a Google Classrooms or a Blackboard. Different sites have adopted different discussion boards to facilitate discussion, administer, you know, assessments, homework, readings, things like that. To meet with students, we use video conferencing. So most of us now are using Zoom. Some are using Google Meet. Some are using Microsoft Teams. But in order to interact with our students and with our classrooms, we're setting up classes very similar to this presentation today, where an instructor is meeting with their classroom virtually. And then there's the online assessment. And so this has really been the toughest part for most of our adult ed providers. You know, we're able to set up Discussion board, that's pretty established and straightforward. Video conferencing has become very straightforward. But now, without being able to meet with my students one-on-one, without access to workbooks and textbooks and being able to see how they're doing in real time, in real life, how do we assess what they're learning? How do we assess what they know? And when they're having difficulty, how do we provide them with tools to improve when we can't be there with them? And so that's really where Learning Upgrade comes in, is a lot of you already have your discussion board set up, you have your video conferencing set up. So with our remote learning action plan, I want to show you how to use Learning Upgrade's online assessment tools for your education programs this fall. And then at the bottom, so remote learning can occur synchronously, and that's with real-time peer-to-peer interaction. For most of you, that's using a video conferencing tool. Sometimes it can be one-on-one with FaceTime or a phone call, but that's very similar to what you were used to pre-COVID. You're meeting with your learners, you have a group of them in a classroom. If you're a tutor, you're maybe meeting with 1 or 2 students individually and walking through your lesson plan, or you're walking through areas that they need instruction on in real time. So Learning Upgrade works really well for that. We have our teacher whiteboards that allow you to use all of our 1,000 plus lessons for in-class instruction. You can work those into your lesson plan. But really for remote learning, what we're seeing is beneficial for most of our learners is to have the option to work asynchronously. And this is really important, especially in a tough economy where a lot of our adult learners are struggling with employment. Our low income learners, those that are most in need, are the ones that are being hit the hardest by this. And so we really have to make sure that they have an asynchronous option that works into their schedule. So if they picked up another shift that's graveyard and they're not able to join your early morning video session, how do we still provide them with the tools and the assessments to make sure that they're making progress? And again, that's where Learning Upgrade fits in. We can work synchronously, we can work asynchronously, and really fit into your program in a way that's going to benefit all of your learners. So for our remote learning action plan, I've kind of addressed the challenges that we're looking to address with it and what we've been able to address since March. But the first one is going to be a rapid transition to remote learning. So like I said, a lot of you, us included, essentially in March had 24 to 48 hours to adapt to a new reality. We've bought in fully. A lot of programs bought in fully right away in March. And I'm glad to see some familiar names on the list there, but a lot maybe didn't. There was a hope that, summer would pass and we would all be back in the classroom just like we used to be when fall came around. It's very clear now that that's not our reality. Remote learning is here to stay in the short term. And depending on what happens over the next few months, it could be something that we're looking at for the entirety of this academic year. So it's important that we transition rapidly, everybody buys in fully, and sets up a remote learning action plan for the benefit of your learners. Number 2 is that, student and teachers are already home. So everything's remote, and most of us have figured out how this is going to work. We figured out internet, we figured out the devices we're going to use, but some issues still come about, even when we've addressed those first 2 challenges. Number 1 is going to be cost. So Learning Upgrade is affordable, but most importantly, with our remote learning action plan, any program that's never used Learning Upgrade before is going to get a free license for the entire fall. So from now until the end of December, you'll have completely free access to Learning Upgrade. Number 2, scalability. So when you're working in a virtual environment, scalability is easier than if you weren't. So, if you have textbooks, say, how are you going to get textbooks and workbooks to all of your learners when you're not meeting in person right now? You're going to have to mail them possibly if you have their address. What if they're moving? What if they don't get them? Postal service is being delayed in certain areas. So it's really difficult to scale a non-digital solution. The nice thing with Learning Upgrade is you can scale it as large as you want. You can use it with 10 students, 1,000 students, 10,000 students. The scaling's the same. If you have a way to contact your learners via email, text, or phone, you can get this into their hands. Deployment, again, that's a part of scalability. We built everything around rapid deployment. It's going to be quick, and we want to make sure that your learners can self-enroll, self-onboard, and be completing their first lessons in 10 minutes. Now, fragmentation, that's the biggest challenge a lot of our education providers are talking about. And that's because they're being thrown 10, 15, or 20 different programs they have to adopt right now. And it's hard to pick, it's hard to vet, and it's hard to find out which one works best. So with Learning Upgrade, we do English, math, and digital literacy. We can take an NRS 1 in English up to an NRS 5. We can, teach your learners first grade fundamental math and work them all the way up through algebra, and then prepare them with our GED and high-set prep courses. And then for those looking to improve their skills for the workforce, we have our new digital literacy. So the Learning Upgrade program is 22 courses, 1,000 plus lessons with tens and thousands of individualized practice questions that are going to really help your learner regardless of which content area they're working on. So fragmentation gets cut down. You don't need a math program and an English and a digital literacy. You get to cover everything with one program. So the answer is obvious. It's smartphones. Trying to get computers to everyone's not possible. Expecting people to buy high-end hardware doesn't work. We have to work with what our students have, and that's smartphones. Right now we know that from every school we've polled, 90% plus already have smartphones, and we do all of our R&D on the lowest end Android phones. So it can be the cheapest phone you'll find on Amazon. Learning Upgrade's going to work. So we can help those students at home by our quick onboarding, and I'll show you how they do that. And then you'll be able to track and monitor all of their progress from home. And we'll be diving into the best practices using our LMS. So very quickly, why smartphones? Students have them. Students know how to download apps. And this is important, is you don't have to train your student. Okay, maybe they're new to a computer. You have to open it, start up, launch the browser. Well, which browser? Type a URL into there, click. With smartphones, our students have them. They know how to use them. They have all the skills. They're using Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, WeChat every day. So what is Learning Upgrade? 22 courses with over 1,000 lessons. As I mentioned, we cover reading, writing, math from basic to diploma. We have digital literacy, and everything that we do is about engagement. So we use songs, video, and games to teach to really drive what we call binge learning. And so binge learning is something that's a new concept. Everybody's familiar with binge watching. I'm sure everybody, especially during the COVID times where we're at home, maybe ran through a few seasons of their favorite show on Netflix. And so Learning Upgrades the same way. Is our interface is laid out similar. We show the students all of the content that's available so we can get that content buy-in. It isn't something where you're sending them, okay, you're going to do 50 apps. No, this is one app, and you can start out at an NRS level 1, and you know that the path ahead of you is all here within this app. If you put the time in, you'll get up to that NRS level 5. If you put the time in, you'll be proficient all the way up to algebra and pass your GED test. And so our engaging lessons combined with our wide array of content really helps drive binge learning. So let's take a look at one of our courses. So we're looking at English Upgrade 5 here. Every single Learning Upgrade course, all 22, have 60 lessons. And so the way it works is learners start on lesson 1, and then they're going to start out with the instruction. And our instruction is engaging. We use, again, songs and animation. We want to grab your learners' attention with that instruction. After the instruction, they're going to answer practice questions. Now, to move from one lesson to the next, you need to get above a 75%. That's a bronze. If you get a 90 to 94%, you'll get a silver. And then from 95% to 100, you're going to get a gold. You'll see here that the learner got gold on every single lesson, and that means that they earned a gold certificate. Lessons 1 through 59 are the content, and then 60 is the only timed lesson for the entire course, and that's our final challenge. Now, for those of you that would like to assign lessons, you can just go into the LMS and unlock a course. So you do have that flexibility as an instructor. If you're saying, hey, today I want you focused on synonyms, then okay, unlock the whole thing. Today you're working on lesson 45. So that is an option for instructors that would like to have a more customized approach. But if you just want learners to work at a self-paced and individualized path, then our app can do that, and we'll take them through all the way. So let's take a look at what it looks like. So On the left here, you'll see the instruction. So again, we use songs, we have a narrator, and we're going to show them the visuals. So it's really difficult for a lot of our learners. If you just throw them a textbook, say, hey, I'd like you to learn about the quadratic equation, learn about volume of a rectangular prism. They're reading through paragraphs, they're trying to understand where things are coming from. With Learning Upgrade, they not only hear it, we're going to show them, we're going to drag and drop, we're going to light up the screen, we're going to use different colors to make sure they really understand what it is we're teaching. Now, after the instruction, on the right, you're going to see the practice questions. So here we're filling in the formula for the rectangular prism. You'll see that the ones you get correct after you submit, everything displays in green. Now, if you click go and you get it wrong, instantly you get that visual where it goes red. Most importantly, though, a narrator is going to come on and we're going to walk you through what you got incorrectly, and then we're going to show you how to answer it the right way. So every single one of these practice questions, again, it's individualized, and we're gonna show you exactly how to answer it correctly. And then we're gonna scale it back. You're gonna get an easier question, and then you're gonna continue your path to proficiency. And this is really important for your learners working at home. You know, this is something where if you're a tutor and your learner gets this wrong, you're able to take out an extra piece of paper, boom, I'm gonna show you exactly how to do it. That's wonderful. Same thing in a classroom setting. If you're going through your instruction on the board, student doesn't get it, they raise their hand, you can go back to that part of the formula and walk them through it. But what do you do in a remote situation? Especially when so much of what we do is asynchronous. You maybe did some instruction on Zoom at 10 in the morning, your learner watches that recording at 5 p.m. and then after dinner, they finally have some time to work on the practice questions. If they get stuck, they're just stuck. You know, especially we're seeing on our servers, the hottest time for learners in remote learning is going to be from 8 p.m. to 3 in the morning. You know, that's not when teachers are scheduling their instruction. So it's important that your platform is robust and that it can actually teach your learners. It can walk them through. They can see the instruction and really understand how to answer these questions correctly. So I keep using the term app, and it is an application, but Learning Upgrade is available everywhere. So if you have an iOS device, an Apple device, an iPhone, or an iPad, if you have an Android device, or if you want to log in on the web, if you have a Chromebook, then you can just open up your preferred browser and log in there. Now, the nice thing is that once your learner has their username and password, they can use any and all devices. So they can finish a few on their Chromebook in the morning, but hey, maybe one of my kids needs the Chromebook at lunchtime. I can just pull out my smartphone, log in there, and I pick up right where I left off during my Chromebook session in the morning. You as an instructor will be able to track and monitor all that remotely. So why Learning Upgrade for remote learning? So Learning Upgrade has a math and English placement test. So, you know, again, pre-COVID, we have our learners taking tests, CASAS, TABE. We know exactly where they are. We're going to auto-enroll them. We're going to have them doing exactly what we need them to do. What if we don't know now? What if somebody joins the program during this remote time? I can't assess them. Well, Learning Upgrade has math and English assessments. First thing they do when they open the app, they get assessed, we'll enroll them in the appropriate course. So you have the option of placements. Learners can also directly enroll. And then as an instructor, you can override. So you can jump in and enroll a student in a certain course, move them ahead to a certain part of the course, and then assign those lessons. Number two is we offer an individualized learning plan, and it's differentiated paths for each student. So this is important, especially in adult ed, where learners can be starting at very different areas. You know, even if they're in the same group, let's say I'm working with ESL students, depending on what their first language is, can dramatically alter where we start them out, depending on how much exposure to English they've had in the past. In math, when was the last math course that they took? Learning Upgrade removes that difficulty from your end, and we're going to offer that differentiated path within the app. Number three is the teachers and admins can monitor student growth, and it's all remote. So you can have a tab open on your Chromebook or your laptop at home while you're grading or you're doing other things, and you can see all of your student progress in real time. You can run site-wide reports, view time on task sessions, see which devices your students are using, and more. Fourth is it's a student account that follows the student. And so this is really important in adult ed. Maybe I'm working with an instructor for one term, and I'm in the, certain class, and then I pass that class and now I'm in another one. Well, what happens to my account? Well, for the learner, it doesn't change at all. Same login, same access, everything is solid for them. They just move into a new teacher's LMS for learning upgrade, but they're always viewed at the site account. So minimal disruption is always our goal, and zero disruption for the student. That's really important to us, to make sure that they always keep their same username, password, and school ID, and that they can use that on any web-enabled device to continue their path to learning success. And then monitoring, and tracking with learning scores. So Vinod can share some tables and some PDFs. So what does it mean? So my learner, they took a placement, they get enrolled in English Upgrade 2. Over the last semester, they went from English Upgrade 2 to English Upgrade 4. What does that mean? Well, you can reference our tables and see exactly what it means. You can see our CASAS alignments and see what CASAS score their learning upgrade course maps up to. You can see the NRS level. And so we can share those tables. And that way, when your learners are making their way through learning upgrade, it won't be an ambiguous, oh yeah, they were in math upgrade 5 and English upgrade 5. You'll be able to see exactly what that means for your school. So the second part of why learning upgrade is, again, we want to do away with fragmentation. So I'm going to have Vinod come on now and talk about how learning upgrade can fit into your adult basic ed, ESL, high school equivalency, college readiness, and employability programs.
Thanks, Drew. So first, we'll talk about ABE and ESL. Many people don't think that, for example, beginning ESL can be taught remotely on smartphones with technology. And as some of you know, Learning Upgrade won the Adult Literacy X Prize last year. And through the field test there, we found out that yes, you can do ESL and basic ABE on a smartphone remotely, and you can track students' progress. So we cover everything from a non-literate person being able to start out all the way up to diploma level, over 1,000 lessons at the ABE and ESL level. So this is a table that maps the CCRS levels, the NRS levels, the NRS ESL levels, TABE and CASA scores to our courses. There's ones for reading, there's ones for math. I'm gonna put up a link in the chat window with all of the alignments and lesson lists. We even have a CASAS alignment that's in a lot of detail. So that you can be confident that the students are getting the learning that they need in basic math, reading, writing, and ESL work. Okay, so let's talk about HSC. It's so difficult to prepare someone for the difficult GED and HiSET exams, especially for the math portions of those exams. And the practice tests don't do it, as you know. They need practice and learning. If they don't know how to solve two equations with two unknowns, they need remediation, they need help, they need a voice, they need practice. So what our courses are going to do is go through all of the material, but we also have a pre-algebra for all those lessons before the GED level, like fractions or coordinate graphs or negative numbers. So we recommend that they do the pre-algebra, then the GED or HiSET math, and our English 4 and 5. Let's talk about college readiness then. I just talked with someone in the Cal State system yesterday. They were telling me their #1 problem they're having with graduation is math remediation, remedial math. Students are just not ready for the first semester of algebra in their colleges. Of course, our courses, we have 1,000 math lessons to get them ready for that. We also have the critical writing and reading so they can understand textbooks and write at a higher level. So the lessons are aligned to the CCRS standards, and they become very important for someone moving on to college. You can see the CCRS alignment here, and if you click on that link, you can get to it. Okay, and the fourth thing is employability skills. It's so important that we get learners ready for the job market. and ready for new higher level jobs. We're going to be going into detail our brand new baby, digital literacy, which is aligned to the ISTE and Northstar standards. I'm going to be going through that next. Okay, so let's talk about this digital literacy course. We've been working on it for 2 years. And the idea is that so many of our students, even if they learn reading, writing, and math, they lack the digital skills needed for academics, for example, joining a Zoom conference, sending an email or text, communicating with an instructor, or in the workplace, being able to deal with email, websites, and things on the workplace. So what makes our course different is that it's high interest, you know, it's music, video games, and there's a lot of practice. Also, we don't just do the nuts and bolts, which is like the Northstar standards, you know, how to use Microsoft Word, but we also are aligned to the ISTE standards with things like digital citizenship, understanding cloud documents, being able to collaborate in group. There's automatic sequencing through the 60 lessons. It's not just a collection of resources with links that you send students to. It's an actual step-by-step course. Okay, so these are our 60 brand new lessons. I'm going to go through them in a little bit of detail. We start with the basics of computers and networks and phones. We get into trust and validity, fake news. We teach them about cloud and local files, documents, editing video, being able to do coding and programming. And then we get into communication. So important, text messaging, direct messaging. What's the difference between a hashtag and a handle? How do you deal with video conferencing? And we get into net etiquette, huge area. How do you treat people on the internet the same way you do in real life? Security, things like passwords, dealing with strangers, scams online, cyberbullying. And finally, in citizenship, you know, how are you going to be a great digital citizen? Do you understand the digital economy? Can you engage with people online? And we do things like Alexa, virtual reality, AI. So that's a feel for what we teach. Now, what I want to show you. Okay, great.
Thank
Now
you.
Drew is going to get into the basics of Learning Upgrade for the admin side on the back end.
All right, thank you, Vinod. And if you could share the link for the pilot, you know, right now I want to transition. So we introduce, you know, some of the challenges we're facing with remote learning, how the Learning Upgrade platform of the student app and the LMS can address those challenges. Now I want to show you how you can deploy Learning Upgrade in a remote setting, you know, never meeting with your students face-to-face. I know some of you are starting to transition where you get to meet with a few students. You have a bit of a hybrid model, but still we have to really be able to make sure that we can deploy a remote learning action plan without ever seeing our students. So I want to focus on how to do that. And for those of you that have never used Learning Upgrade before, maybe you've heard of us and we're waiting for the right opportunity, you know, make sure Vinod's going to share a link in the chat box, and that'll have that pilot form. You can just fill that out. We'll receive those. There is a drop down where you're going to mention COABE. And so just make sure you have COABE there, and that way we know. We tend not to do pilots that are this long for the entire fall from now until the end of December. But as long as you select COABE for your member participation, we'll be able to give you that extended pilot. So he'll be providing that link in the chat box. You can do it now, or you can wait until after the presentation. You know, maybe just bookmark that link, and that way we can make sure we get everybody a pilot starting early next week. So how do we launch a remote learning action plan? So from our end at Learning Upgrade, we tend to focus on these 4 steps. Number 1 is going to be teacher training. You know, that's going to be the most important. You're really the end user, even though our students are the ones that are logging into the app, completing courses and lessons. You know, in Adult Ed, the very best thing about Adult Ed is the instructors. And I love admins, but it's the instructors. It's the teachers that are working with our students day in and day out. They know their classroom. They know their learners, and they're the ones, when it comes down to it, regardless of what's decided at an admin level, they're going to be the ones that are going to be deploying this. So I want to make sure that the teachers have the training, they have all their questions answered, and that we're able to provide them with the tools to be successful. Once our teachers are trained, they're going to be confident in these next steps. And that's what I'm going to cover for the back half of this presentation. It's how do we onboard students? Once our students are onboarded and completing lessons, how do we then motivate and track those students? And then once they're really doing well, they're completing lessons, getting certificates, how do we celebrate that student success? So the very first step is student self-enrollment using an enrollment class code. So as I mentioned, the best way to get started is to click that link. If for whatever reason you can't, maybe you're on an iPhone or a tablet and you don't want to switch away from your app, that's okay too. You can go to learningupgrade.com. You'll see in the main menu, it'll say pilot request. Just click on pilot request, fill that out. And again, for your member participation, just select COABE so we know to give you that extended time on the pilot. Once we receive your pilot form, then we'll be responding with our getting started email. In the subject line, they'll say something in regards to remote learning action plan. And that way you'll know, okay, this is the Learning Upgrade remote learning action plan email. Make sure you get that open. And now I want to walk you through the steps you'll take once you receive that. So again, when we look at our 4 steps, teacher training, that's today. That's our presentation. Step number 2 is student onboarding. So it's the very first thing we lead off with in this email. Say, okay, we've approved your pilot. Now student self-enrollment. So students are going to self-enroll into Learning Upgrade using their own individual device, smartphone, tablet, or computer. And what you'll want to do is you'll see this link for class code sheet in the middle. We'll also display your 7-digit class code at the top, but what you'll want to do is click the class code sheet in the middle. And this is what you're going to be sending to your students. And it'll look like this. There's a toggle button to have this in Spanish at the top when it's viewed in the browser. But what you can do is you want to pull this up. If you're on a smartphone or tablet, you can take a screenshot. If you're on a computer, you can save it as a PDF. And this is the document you want to get into the hands of your students as quickly as possible. This 7-digit code is what they're going to enter in the getting started phase. And that's how our system knows to enroll them into your remote learning class. So let's take a look at what it is going to be like for a student. So as an instructor, I clicked on class code sheet. I copied that bottom sentence there. It has a link to our listing in the App Store, the Google Play Store, and it has a link to the web browser. So they know exactly how to find the Learning Upgrade app, regardless of which platform they're on. Now the instructor provided me with this self-enrollment guide. So I see exactly, but the steps I need to take. Number 1, download the Learning Upgrade app. Teacher provided me with instructions for that. Number 2, I have to launch the app and click Get Started. So I've launched the app and I see Get Started there. So I'm going to click Get Started. Now the next step on the sheet is going to, I need to pick English, reading, math. Where do I want to start? So in this case, I'm starting with math. So now I see my options when I start with math and English is I can directly enroll into a course by clicking on it. I can start at the very beginning, or if I'm not quite sure where I need to be, then I'm going to click on placement. And so what we're seeing for a lot of our instructors in this remote environment, that they're just, staying in that contact email or on their message board or however they're communicating with their students. I want you to start on math. I want you to start on English. I want you to click placement. So that way, when you click placement, the very first thing the learner does is they get assessed, and then the app is going to enroll them in the appropriate Learning Upgrade course. Now, if they know, okay, I really want to work on pre-algebra, I really want to work on, Math 8, algebra, they can do that as well. But that's something that this screen is for, is this is going to be the first course that they use. So after selecting their course, now they're going to enter their first name, their last name, and most importantly on the right here, they're going to enter their class code. And that class code, we display it really big at the top of the student self-enrollment guide. We have it at the first sentence for that self-enrollment block in the teacher email. And that way, no mistake, that's the code that goes into the class code form when your students are self-enrolling. And again, that's how our system knows to take this account creation and put it into your teacher account. Student ID field is optional. You can leave it blank as a student. or you can enter your email or phone number. And then once you've done that, the app is going to show you your Learning Upgrade username, password, and school ID. And this is what's going to enable the student to log into this account on any web-enabled device. So if they're sharing devices at home, if they have a prepaid phone and they might get a new one soon, it doesn't matter. Any web-enabled device with Learning Upgrade access, they can plug in this username, password, and school ID and pick up right where they left off. So once we've shown them this, they'll view their screen. So here, we'll see in this case for the demo, I directly enrolled into GED Math. Preparing for the GED Math test, I really need to focus there. What I can also do is click on any of those grayed out icons. Once that pulls up, I can add it. So if I'm in math now, but I also would like to take some English, I can click on any grayed out icon. We'll show you the course map, and then you can add that. So that's what it looks like for the student. It's really straightforward. They get that self-enrollment guide, they create their account. But what's most important is not just to create the account. So when you're communicating with your learners, it's not enough to have them get in and get their username and password and get to that courses screen. Just think back to the last time a friend recommended that you watch a show on Netflix or a movie or anything like that. If you were to just go open up your Netflix app on your phone and, let's say my friend wanted me to watch Lost. So I go to the Lost listing and I say, okay, looks like a pretty cool show description's great. And then I close it out. The likelihood that I ever come back into Netflix and watch Lost is not very good. But if I were to set some time aside and say, hey, I have 2 hours tonight, I opened up Netflix, I click on Lost, and then I watch that pilot episode. And there's the plane, and then there's Jack, and you get to know all the characters. And by that point, you're hooked. And then you're, 5 episodes in, it's 2 a.m, and you're wondering how you're going to work the next day. That's exactly the same thing with Learning Upgrade. And what we talk about with Binge Learning is, so it's not enough to have your learners, create their account, launch the app, and get that first course. Make sure they're setting enough time aside to finish a few lessons. Say, hey, what we like to see is 30 minutes. It's not a lot of time, but 30 minutes is enough to have them create their account and finish 1 or 2 lessons. They understand the app, they get the feel for it, the binge learning begins. And from that point on, as an instructor, you can sit back and motivate your learners and track their progress. So let's take a look at some of the reports that we're recommending in our LMS for tracking progress remotely. Again, in your Getting Started email, we'll have an entire section that covers this. We also have a support page that we link to from the LMS that has documentation for every single one of these steps with images and detailed write-ups. But in your Getting Started email, we keep it short and to the point. So that top content block was student self-enrollment. Our students get enrolled in 5 to 10 minutes. They set aside 20 minutes to complete their first lesson or 2. Their binge learning begins. Now I go back to my email and I have tracking class and student activity. So what's my first step as an instructor? Well, now I need to log in. So signing in, I go to log in. I have my username, password, and school ID as a teacher. Now I'm logged into the LMS. And then step 2 and 3 in that content area is quick reports for account revisions, and then also the in-depth reports. So you can follow those instructions in the email, but I want to go over what that's going to look like for you. So, okay, you have your username, password, and school ID. You've logged into the Learning Upgrade LMS. This is the layout here. So you get in and everything is organized into tabs. You have students, courses, classes, teachers, reports, and then help. Again, if you'd like to see documentation on everything, that's where the help tab is for. For now, we're going to focus on students and courses. So when you log in students, your students are going to be self-enrolling and completing lessons. They're going to automatically populate in your students tab here. So you don't have to populate this at all. Because your learners are self-enrolling using our remote learning action plan, they're just going to automatically show up for you here. You get to see exactly who is self-enrolled and have a very quick report of, okay, I need to contact the other students because they're not here. Let's find out why. So the first report you'll want to do is you'll see big in caps, student monitor. So when you pull up the student monitor, you're going to get a live look at how your entire class is doing. As I mentioned, every single Learning Upgrade course has 60 lessons. We abbreviate the name of the course. So these are all E1 for English Upgrade 1. When you're viewing yours, the names will display next to that as well. And then each one of these tiles is going to represent a completed lesson. So you'll see the gold for 95 to 100, silver 90 to 94, and then bronze for 75 to 89. For those that have completed an entire course, you'll see their certificates displaying on the right. You can click on those, then save them as a PDF and share them on your message board. However you're communicating with your students as a group, be a great way to help motivate and encourage. But your time is short. So what I want you to focus on in the student monitor are anytime you see a red tile. So if you see a red tile, hover over that. And when you're viewing it live, we're going to let you know the name of the lesson, the number of times your students attempted that, and then the high score. So if you see one attempt, 72%, don't even worry about it. The student will play that again, repeat that lesson, and get above 75, guaranteed. What you want to keep an eye out for is if a student hovers, or you hover over the red and you see that a student has played it 5 times and their high score is 42, then you want to find out the name of the lesson and get a more in-depth look at what's going on. And I'll be able to show you how to do that next. But the second thing you focus on in the student monitor is students that are falling behind. So third from top, they're not completing a lot of lessons, but most of them are gold. So I can eyeball that and say, hey, that's a time on task issue. My student just needs to spend more time. Maybe they picked up another job. Maybe they're having a difficult time with their own kids in remote learning and they just don't have access to the devices. That's one issue. Third from the bottom is a separate issue. So this one, it's all bronze. And this is a case you can look at that and say, okay, maybe they're struggling with English Upgrade 1. Let's enroll them in a previous course, or maybe we need to work with them on some of these lessons. But that's a quick way to eyeball the student monitor. Keep an eye out for red tiles and then courses where your students are falling behind. Once you've identified an area where your students are falling behind, we go back to our teacher menu. You'll see we were in the students tab, and that's where we found the student monitor. And now we're in the courses tab. So in the courses tab, you'll see that every single course has a report button. So you can just click report. And when you click report, you're going to get individualized course reports for all of your learners with subject area scores. You'll get to see their high score, initial score, graphs. And so that's how you get an in-depth look at individual course reports. If you need to, for whatever reason, change a student's name, you can click edit. That's how you edit usernames and passwords. We show the student their password, username password when they create their account, but what if they forget? You can click this print passwords button and you can print off lists of your entire class roster with different viewing options. And so that's a way you can do that. Going back to the courses tab, as I mentioned earlier, if you'd like to unlock an entire learning upgrade course, you'll see that next to those individual reports, there's also an edit button. So what you can do is just click edit. Let's say my learner's on English Upgrade 2 Lesson 18. I don't want them to go through one at a time. I need them to work on 40 through 45. You can just click edit in the courses tab, type in any number, and the student moves there. Now, what you can also do is if you just want to unlock an entire course, you just type in 60, and that'll make all 60 lessons available. So you can click edit and do that for individual courses. You can also do that for an entire class. And that's something you just click on this edit courses. So individual buttons are next to individual courses and student. Class-wide buttons are the ones above here. So you have the option to unlock the courses that way. So that's just a quick look. Again, there's more documentation on our help page for those that are getting more involved with the editing process. But for Remote Learning Action Plan, we're just focused on a very rapid deployment. Get started, get your learners on, make sure that they get their first lessons completed, and then you want to track them with the student monitor, individual course reports, and make sure that they're in the appropriate course. Now, once you've done that, you're going to jump into the reports tab. And in the reports tab, you're going to get more in-depth table-based reports. So the two that I want to focus on just very quickly is the student progress report by date. So with the student progress report by date, you can set a start date and an end date, and we'll tell you all the activity that took place during that time. The hours played, the lessons completed. So this is really important for those of you that need to report that data for distance learning or other types of reporting. This is a very table-friendly one that you can take into Excel or Google Sheets quickly. By default, we show you every single course, but you can also group these. So you can say all math, all English, everything where we just show you one number for the entire student. but that's the student progress report by date. The next one that you'll want to use is going to be the student time report by date. And this is how you track that binge learning. Again, you can set a start date and an end date, and then we'll tell you all the activity that took place within that time period. We're going to show you every single session. So you'll see when the session began and ended. You'll see how many minutes were spent during that session, the course, the name of the lesson, and then most importantly now in remote learning is the device used. Are they on a smartphone? Are they on a computer? So this really helps you target your time. If you want to meet with a student, you want to set some time aside. If you're a tutor or an instructor, you can say, wow, you know, my learner is working hard from 9 p.m. until 3 a.m. completing a ton of lessons. And then they also log back in at 10 to 11 in the morning. Well, maybe that's the time I want to target my intervention. Let's set up a Zoom time at 10. We'll work on those lessons you're struggling with. And then you can just take your smartphone out like you've been doing and complete lessons and work on those practice questions at night. Unless you're the kind of teacher that wants to meet with a student late at night, but I know that's not an easy ask, so I wouldn't recommend it. But that's really those are the two main reports in the reports tab. So just want to go back. You'll log into your LMS. By default, you're always going to start out in your students tab. That's where you're going to click on your student monitor. If you need to edit a username, password, or name, you can click the edit button in the students tab. You can also track and monitor their progress in the courses tab with the individualized course reports, and that's where you're going to click that report button. You can move students ahead in the course by clicking edit. Again, type in 60 if you would like to unlock all 60 lessons, and then they can jump around. You can assign lessons. You know, in a situation where we were looking at the student monitor third from bottom and my student was struggling with a course, how do I add a new one? Well, let's say, okay, you know, my students here, they did well, EK 2, 3, 4. Now I want them to work on math. The student can add it themselves, but as an instructor, I can do that as well. I just click the add course button in the courses tab. I can select any course, say, hey, I'm enrolling you in digital literacy. These are great lessons. This is going to help you for your job search. Then that's how I add digital literacy. Let's say a learner added a course that was too difficult, or I don't want them working on that course right now. Some will do that. You can override that as an instructor. You'll see that each course also has a remove button. You can log in, so you can remove courses, add courses, edit courses. It's powerful and flexible. And again, if you want to see images and write up documentation for everything you can do, you can always go to that help tab and visit our support page where we have everything in the teacher menu documented. So that's the end of our presentation today for our remote learning action plan. The last thing I want to close with is, okay, we talked about teacher training, student onboarding, tracking and monitoring. Well, you also had celebrating student success. So how do we do that outside of what we're already doing? You know, we're encouraging learners, we print certificates. It's not easy right now. And so for that, we have the COABE Learning Upgrade Challenge. And for that, we provide prizes for our top program, top instructor, students with the most hours, lessons, and certificates. And that way, there's an additional prize coming from COABE and Learning Upgrade that for the learners that really excel, complete the most lessons in the entire COABE membership, there will be additional prizes for them. So thank you everyone for attending, and we can close here by answering a few questions. I think Vinod had been keeping an eye on the Q&A, so we can answer any that may be worth doing live.
Thanks, Drew. So we had a couple of questions about moving a student up to a certain level. For example, if they want to start on email in digital literacy.
Yes. So that was the one in the let's see, the courses tab here. So again, I don't have digital literacy for any of these, but let's say, you know, you're in English 221. Again, in the courses tab, you click edit and you can type any number into the edit screen. So what most of our instructors do is they just type 60. When they type 60, that gives access to all 60 lessons. It unlocks the entire course, and that's how you would be able to assign lessons within a course.
Okay, and there was another question about, and I'll take this one. It's Robin Barr was talking about students who have both ESL and dyslexia, so they're at a very low level. And actually, we've had a lot of success with this. About 30% of our students have IEPs. And so what you want to do is start with our very first English course, English K, And we do a lot of lessons on phonemic awareness, basic vocabulary, and decoding to help with students in that category. So yes, we can help, but you have to start all the way at the beginning. And I think that is it for the questions.
Okay, sounds great. I see there are 7 pilot requests that have already come in. Last thing we'll close with for the 3rd time, just make sure to fill out that pilot form. Vinod linked it in the chat. You can also go to learningupgrade.com and click on the pilot request form. We'll be turning these around quickly early next week. We've gotten in the habit, similar to our sites have their remote learning action plan. We've added hundreds of adult ed providers since March. So we're a well-oiled machine here. So feel free to fill those out, as many students as you need. You'll have access all fall, and everyone will be up and running early next week.
Drew, Vinod, thank you so much for that presentation. That was really great. Thank you again to all of our participants. I just launched a poll, so if you could just take a minute to fill that out, let us know what you think. Also, as a reminder, this presentation and webinar will be posted to coabe.org within 48 hours of the conclusion of this. And once again, thank you, Vinod, and thank you, Drew, and thank you, Learning Upgrade, and thank you for everybody who participated today. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.